Okay, so welcome back to another video. In this video I'm going to be doing a little driving review of the Lexus NX300 Hybrid. This is obviously I mean bigger than what I'm used to. Not obviously the RX version, which is the much bigger version. This is a 2.5 litre hybrid engine, petrol as well this one is, so a little quicker off the line than the diesel ones are obviously. We've got an automatic CVT gearbox, and I'm no mechanic, so I'm probably not the best person to explain this type of stuff, but effectively it's like a cone almost, and it makes a big difference to the sound as well actually. So it's you don't have gears as a traditional automatic gearbox. It just kind of goes up one long thing forever, so it just goes like forever. There's no gear change or anything like that, which is why I'll get into these flappy paddles in a second here. I've never actually really driven an automatic before. Probably everything I've always driven has been manual, so this feels very weird to me. Actually very, very nice, to be honest. I've heard some feedback saying that this isn't as comfortable, funny enough, as some other counterparts, like the Skoda Kodiaq, for example. Apparently is more comfortable. I can't speak, I haven't driven that, but apparently is more comfortable than this, which is strange. I wouldn't have expected that, seeing as obviously this is a Lexus and it's 20% more expensive, all that. But yeah, so I can speak about the interior a little bit. I haven't had a whole lot of time to play with this. It's got some nice gimmicky things, like the windows, if you look, they speed up and then slow down as they get to the bottom or top, so they don't slam shut. You know, little things like that. It's obviously got the sequential indicators as well, which is quite nice. Don't get me wrong, this is a hire car at the moment, so I haven't had anywhere near enough time really to be qualified to speak about this, but the drive definitely is, I think, I mean, compared to obviously the Hyundai i30N is what I drive daily in the last video I showed, compared to that, this is the most comfortable thing I've ever driven by miles. I think the ride's brilliant, it's quiet, it's insulated, and I think it feels very nice. But then again, I haven't driven many of these type of vehicles, so to be honest I can't really speak for it. But I mean, for me anyway, this is comfortable enough. I could drive this for 1,000 miles and be perfectly happy with it. The inside is actually quite weird in a way. Not if you're accustomed to Lexuses, I suppose, but for me anyway, it's a strange thing. So we've got like a, you know, normal cup holders and everything here, but then you've got quite a big thin screen up there, but it's all controlled by this touch well, trackpad, basically like a trackpad for a laptop, which is, I find, quite horrible to use, to be completely honest. I find it hard to navigate around, and it's just unnecessarily, you know, I know they're trying to make it look a bit more posh. I mean, you've got this clock with a very nice touch and stuff like that, but I find it more effort than it really needs to be. A touchscreen is much more user-friendly, and just more modern as well, to be honest, using these trackpads and things. I'm surprised they're still doing it. Personally, I don't like it. I mean, I haven't used it enough to speak for what it would be like after a couple months ownership. Maybe you get used to it, but personally, from my experience with it, I don't like that. You've got obviously electric handbrake, hill hold assist, all this good stuff. You've got a button here, I'm not sure if you can see the dial there, but it changes to a rev counter. Obviously that's pointless because the CVT doesn't have a rev counter, seeing as it just doesn't function like a normal engine per se. So that's funny, and I don't know if this camera will pick it up, but it plays engine sound through the speakers in the car, just the radio basically. So I don't know if you can hear that, but it literally plays engine sound and fakes like gear changes and things like this through this through the speakers, which is really strange, to be honest, because it's not a car. I mean, it is the sport version like it says down here, but it's not a sporty car. It's not quick by anyone's standards, I wouldn't have said. So I'm not really sure why they've gone for this type of V8 sounding speaker thing. I guess it's just, I don't know, it only does it in sport mode, thankfully, so you can just turn it off with the press of a button. But I thought that was very strange. Also, so obviously if you slide this into its sequential mode, you've got paddles, and you can see it says the gears on the screen, but it's a CVT, there aren't any gears, so I'm not entirely sure why this exists. It's basically, I think it's simulating what the normal gears would feel like. So I've got a rev counter, and now I don't know if you can hear that noise. That isn't the car's engine, that is the speakers. That's, you know, and then you get out to a rev counter and you can gear up, and it is actually quite cool, I suppose, but it is a proper gimmick because it's doing nothing to the engine. If anything, making it slower, because it's just an extra hassle of gearing up, but there aren't any gears. And it also doesn't react anything like a normal manual gearbox. You can do whatever speed you want, stick it into first, and it will just make a heck of a lot of noise, but it doesn't really affect the way the car feels. You know, similarly, you can stick it into sixth, and funny enough, there's no one behind me, so this is fine. You can stop in sixth, so we're stopped in sixth, and then you can move off in sixth, and to me it feels like it's put it back into its fake first, if you see what I mean, but it's still saying sixth. Obviously that's not sixth. If it was trying to properly simulate sixth, you would have stalled or you wouldn't move, so that's quite funny. Similarly, if you're on the motorway, you can stick it in first, and it just makes a lot of noise but doesn't really do anything. So I'm not entirely sure why that exists, but I suppose it could be a bit of fun. The paddles are actually quite nice feeling things as well, so it's a bit of a waste really, because obviously, you know, it doesn't use anything, but yeah, oh well. Yeah, so you do have a standard lane keep assist on this, and a radar cruise control, so like adaptive cruise control, which is by the sounds of it anyway, something to be desired nowadays. So if that's exciting for you, then you will like this for that reason. It's also got obviously the little clock in the middle, got heated seats. Don't know why I don't have that on already. And yeah, it is a very nice sloping center console type thing. It is very nice, to be fair, but it's also it's smaller than you might think. From the outside, to me anyway, it looks like quite a big car, but on the inside it does actually feel quite cramped. It's all kind of, you know, you're squished up by all the by all the body panel and things like that. It's not actually, there isn't a whole lot of room in here, which is interesting. But in my experience anyway, by far the most comfortable thing I've ever driven. Also, I'm still marveling at the automatic, just because it's so easy to drive. I drive manuals daily to work and everything, so I'm just not used to just putting your foot on the floor and the car moving. You know, I actually have gone to depress the clutch a couple times, and then obviously realised that there isn't one. So I'm still getting used to that. But it's a strange, it really is. I actually, funny enough, quite like it, which sounds weird obviously coming from someone who clearly likes sportier things, but in a different way. It doesn't encourage you to drive quickly. You've got nice leather comfortable seats, you've got heated steering wheel as well, I didn't mention down here. You've got the heated steering wheel, you've got heated seats, you've got a nice automatic gearbox. It's probably not I keep saying automatic, forgetting it is actually, there's no gears, so I mean obviously it is technically automatic, but there's nothing to do. So but yeah, you've got a smooth gearbox, and it's not overly quick off the line, it's not quick in a straight, it's not quick anywhere, but it's not built for that. And you can tell, oh my god, that heated seat's strong. But it's just, it actually encourages you to drive quite, so it's a cruiser as well, I think anyway. It's something you could happily sit on the motorway in, be very comfortable. You could sit around town, it's very nice. It's not something you'd want to you know, just rag down any back roads, because it's just not built for that. But for, you know, for doing, basically for commuting and stuff like that, this is brilliant. And obviously around towns, because it's hybrid, I imagine anyway, you get a much better fuel consumption than a standard engine, because a lot of the time you're on the battery only, effectively. Speaking of that, we do actually have a button here, EV mode. I haven't used this yet. EV mode, me accelerator depressed too far. So EV mode definitely has its limits, because I'm doing 23 miles an hour, and apparently the accelerator was depressed too far. So EV mode may be only for 20 zone limits. I don't know. Not entirely sure the use for that. You'd have to play around with that a bit more. But interesting nonetheless, I suppose. But yeah, it is very nice in here compared to some counterparts. You've got nice leather stitching, leather interior. You've got a nice, you know, leather steering wheel. Everything's all very squishy, and this armrest type thing in the middle is it's high quality. It's all very nice interior, and it does look much more premium than some other things. But I wouldn't also, I mean, it's got I'm not sure if you can see in here, but it's got a wireless charger pad in the center console, which I think is a bit strange, because that means your phone has to be miles away from you. Also, obviously you're not going to be using it while you're driving, because you're not, but it's just, if it rings and it's not connected to the car, you might not even hear it. You're much more likely to forget it when you get out the car, things like that. So I'm not sure about that, to be honest. I'm also definitely not sure about this trackpad thing. I'm actually too scared to use it while driving, because I just feel like it's a, you know, I mean, it's as if a touchscreen wasn't enough of a distraction already. Now you've got something which you have to teach yourself all over again. You've got to watch where your cursor is. I mean, what's wrong with just slapping a button on the screen? So, to be honest, I think that's a design flaw and a half, personally. But it depends. I suppose once you get used to it, you might end up loving it. I don't know. But yeah, at the moment anyway, I'm not a fan of that. But yeah, hopefully I'll be able to get my hands on that Skoda Kodiaq at some point, so I can speak a little more for the ride quality comparing the both. This is, I mean, to me it feels like a boat. It feels luxury, you know, the nicest thing I've ever driven, comfort wise. But I have heard from people that drive these type of cars more often that it's actually not as good as you might think. So that is strange. But yeah, maybe not something you'd expect. I don't think comfort as in the seats and stuff, I think they just mean ride quality as in it's a little more, I guess because it is the sport version, it's a little more bumpy, sway about and stuff like that. To me it does, I mean, it's not bad at all. I don't see that, but maybe not as good as some others. So that's something to consider, I suppose. Also the price tag, obviously, as well. And it is only a 2.5 litre hybrid engine, so you're not getting, I don't know what the power figures are, to be honest. I think it's about 190. And you've got a fair amount of weight in here, more than you've got in, you know, something like a hatchback, obviously. So you're not going to be getting, it's not a quick thing. By my standards anyway. So if that's what you're after, then look away, to be completely honest. And I'm not sure how well this fares towing caravans and stuff, because it doesn't have as much weight behind it as the RX models do, and not as bigger engine. I think they're 3.2 litre engines, so I'm not sure how this does towing caravans, things like that. These are all things you might have to look into, but I'm here mainly for the ride quality, to be honest. And from my perspective, I love it. It's also swayed by the automatic gearbox. It's very nice, but it's I think it's very nice to drive. It's all it's just so easy. There's no, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but I don't think you. Let's just say I don't think you'd be disappointed. You're not going to be. There's nothing. Maybe it's a little more expensive and maybe not worth that extra price, but there's not going to be anything much better, I don't think. You're not going to be thinking, oh, I could have spent this and got a better, you know, this and that. I don't think that really exists here. It's a very comfortable thing, and there isn't really much. I mean, even if it is a little bit better, it's not going to be a deal breaker. So I think it's very nice in that perspective. I can't really speak too much for MPG. It does have an eco mode, as you can see here, which takes off the rev counter and puts it back into the more standard CVT thing, where it just tells you when it's on eco and stuff, and tells you how much power you're putting in. Basically, it's more of a throttle percentage almost than it is a rev counter, because that just doesn't really work like that. So I'm not entirely sure. I don't want to muck about this screen too much. I'm not entirely sure how you would see your MPG, so unfortunately I can't really say what it gets. But obviously, depending on where you drive it around town, I assume that hybrid comes into its own quite a lot. When you're rolling off from the line, you don't have to rev your engine up, and I imagine that adds up around town. So probably quite good, to be completely honest. And definitely not as much space in here as you might think. I think is the biggest surprise, especially in the back seats. They're not by any means squash. You can get people in there relatively comfortably, but if you're used to a Skoda Kodiaq or something of that size, this is going to feel like a downgrade for everyone. Boot space, back seat space, front seat space, everything. It's going to feel like a downgrade in all of that. So maybe worth looking at the RX model, which I'm sure is 5-10 grand more expensive, but that's not my problem. So yeah, maybe I'll do another video where I look a bit more in depth at the infotainment system, because I literally won't be doing that while driving, because it's just overly complicated, and I do think this trackpad system is stupid. And yeah, maybe have a look at the interior a little more when it's not so dark. Hopefully this video came out okay in the dark as well. If you've got any questions, comments, leave them down there, and I will try my best to get back to them. Thank you for watching.